Thank you, Barry. So next up, we're going to move on to our keynote today, which is Harold Hughes, the President and CEO of Rambus. Harold's bio is that Harold spent 23 years at Intel, and then he was CEO of Pandesic, Intel and SAP joint venture. Harold served as a US Army officer prior to his private sector career. When he was at Intel, he was head of Intel Capital, and he was the CFO. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin and an MBA from the University of Michigan. Harold today is going to talk about all the complexity and challenges of our industry right now, the shorter design cycles, the price performance issues, and just speed as well. The amount of the speed, whether it's the time to market or the speed of the designs themselves, are creating a lot of challenges in our industry. And I think Harold today is going to talk a little bit about how we can address those challenges. So please welcome me and join in Harold Hughes to the stage, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good to meet you. You should take those, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. 2010 was a tough year for the global economy. Sovereign debt credit problems in Europe, stubbornly high unemployment in the US, and continued ripples global financial markets following the bursting of the housing bubble. Despite the long shadows cast by these economic storms, high-tech had an absolutely banner year. Semiconductors bounced back strongly from a tough 2009, growing an astounding 34% year over year. Generally, markets of hundreds of billions of dollars don't grow at rates like that. In fact, semis set a new record surpassing the $300 billion mark for the first time ever. Mobile phone shipments reached a record 1.4 billion phones, 1.4 billion phones powered by heady growth in smartphones. That helped lift Qualcomm's revenues fourth quarter to fourth quarter by 25%, quite a number. PC sales, again, another record, both for the year and for the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, the strong growth of social networking and other cloud-based applications all across all platforms drove solid server sales. This was evidenced by Intel's record quarter and record 2010, driven again largely by microprocessor sales to servers. Obviously, there's a trend going on here. Another 2010 record, percentage of semiconductor penetration in electronic systems. This is measured by dividing semiconductor sales by total electronic system sales. It reached the 25% mark for the first time in history. Part of the story was stable or modestly growing ASPs for semiconductor products. An even bigger and longer-term factor was the increased functional density of electronic systems. This was great news for semiconductor suppliers. It's good news also for consumers, because this meant products that offer more features and functions. And with no pause in that trend on the horizon, percentage semiconductor penetration is forecasted to hold the 25% threshold for years to come. So, lots of good news for tech, but great challenges remain. This chart illustrates a very long-term trend going back to the days of radio. Time to market is shrinking, and shrinking at an accelerated rate. This puts greater amount of pressure on first-time right silicon in making the right system implementation choices. And faster adoption rates make the first mover advantage enormous. Would that I had a slightly bigger dais here. Here's an illustration of this trend. Tablets, which have grown up from mobile phones, broke onto the scene in April of last year with the introduction of the Apple iPad. 9 months later at SEC, just a few weeks ago actually, over 40 companies introduced over 100 new tablet models. This is a brand new consumer product category that runs on mobile operating systems that didn't even exist 5 years ago. Tablets are projected to become the fourth largest consumer segment after mobile phones, PCs, and digital televisions. Tablets will surpass 50 million units in less than 2 years, following the trend of accelerated technology adoption. As I mentioned before, accelerated technology adoption gives a huge advantage to first to market. Last year, 18 million tablets shipped. 17 million were from Apple. Apple will be very tough to catch in this market. Some of the companies that introduced tablets at CIS included top brands like Samsung, Motorola, Toshiba, Panasonic, and LG. Each of these companies faces tremendous challenges differentiating their products and gaining traction in a very crowded market space. Achieving differentiation is another big challenge for our industry. Continued progress by the industry to shrink the smaller geometries has enabled incredibly powerful semiconductor products with up to billions of transistors. However, each smaller process node has seen a dramatic increase in design costs. At 22 nanometers, these costs are forecast to rise to over $140 million for a new chip. $140 million per chip. That's a number worthy of contemplation. Unsurprisingly, rising fixed cost has translated to a decline in the number of design starts at each process node. The yellow bars show ASIC starts, which are forecasted to fall to only 150 starts at the 22 nanometer node. That's down from 1,000 designs at 65 nanometers. I'm confident there will be more than 150 good ideas as to how to build an ASIC. But clearly, the ASIC model at these lower and lower geometries is broken and very much in need of a solution. So you folks should better get to work. This chart measures only ASICs, but the story is the same for SoCs. Like the pressure for time to market, rising design costs mean greater pressure on first-time right silicon. Ask my good friend Paul Adelini. I thought that would get at least a little laugh. No? All right. I'm sure Paul's not laughing, right? What would be ideal from the perspective of the semiconductor supplier is a single IC that can address a broad spectrum of system performance needs. From casual to extreme, from entry level to prosumer, what the IC supplier would like is one chip with the flexibility to support multiple system configurations. For the high-end segment, the desire would be for top-of-the-line performance for differentiation, but still be able to hit the very competitive price points for entry-level systems. The IP business model is the market's rational response to the time to market and cost pressures faced by designers. No one has the resources to do it all themselves or to be best in class at everything. By leveraging the expertise of IP providers, companies can focus on their core competencies and competitive strengths. Having just celebrated our 20th anniversary at Rambus, we were a pioneer in that business model, and we have received as many of the arrows accompanying that type of position. Our founders realized early on that they would be unable to raise the capital to build a fab. But through IP licensing, they concluded they would be able to have the broad reach of their innovations and add value to the products of many companies. Rambus has developed expertise in many semiconductor domains, and more recently in lighting and display technology. But dating back to the founding, we have been renowned for our leadership in memory technology. As an example, the Terabyte Bandwidth Initiative, or TBI, reflects Rambus's ongoing commitment to innovation at cutting-edge memory performance. First unveiled in 2007, we demonstrated then-record memory performance of 16 gigabits per second. In 2009, we demonstrated the ability for a seamless migration from our leadership XDR memory to next-generation XDR2. And today, we announced the next leap forward for TBI. The advance of differential signaling to a record 20 gigabits per second, and for single-ended memory signaling, we developed innovations that can enable data rates of 12.8 gigabits per second. Just as importantly, we've demonstrated the ability to enable a seamless transition from today's industry standard single-ended memories to differential memories in future. This is a picture of the demo board for our TBI second-generation silicon test vehicle. On the board, that one chip interfaces with 3 different memories. A future differential memory, TBI memory, running at 20 gigabits per second. That's the yellow box. GDDR5 DRAM, a single-ended memory running at 6.4 gigabits per second. That's the green box. And mainstream DDR3 DRAM, also single-ended, running at 2.4 gigabits per second, and that is the white box. There is also a companion board showing the same chip interfacing with an emulated advanced single-ended memory operating at 12.8 gigabits per second. And we've achieved all this with unmatched power efficiency. Our TBI memory interface operates at just 6 milliwatts per gigabit per second at 20 gigabits per second. And you can see very clean eyes for each of these operating modes. And you can see all of this in the flesh, operating live, if you stop by the Rambus booth when DesignCon opens tomorrow. Typically, the flexibility of multi-mode operations has come at the expense of greater overhead in the form of complexity and pin count. This also increases costs. Rambus engineers have developed a new innovation called flex mode interface technology that allows both differential and single memory interfaces to be implemented on a single SoC package with no extra pins. May I repeat, with no extra pins. It does this by dynamically reassigning pins from either data or command and address depending upon the memory with which it is interfacing. And I might add, with just a little bit of magic. Actually, I'm kidding about the magic. With this technology, there is no pin or package overhead for multimodality, which enables a seamless transition from single-ended to differential as data rates continue to climb, or operating single-ended systems at substantially higher data rates than the industry currently provides. With these innovations, one chip can address the broad spectrum of performance needs, differentiation at the high end, while retaining the ability to use standard commodity memories for price-sensitive entry-level systems. While the innovations we've developed through the TBI initiative are targeted for the needs of gaming and graphic markets, these innovations are applicable across a wide range of electronics. Whether for mobile, computing, or consumer electronics, these innovations can create differentiation, cover the broad range of system needs, and give OEMs flexibility in sourcing and selecting supply. Returning to the big picture, no other industry has done more to shape the landscape of modern life than high tech. Connectedness, convenience, education, entertainment, and empowerment are all enabled by the technology our industry has developed, productized, and produced. For all the positive developments, there are nonetheless great challenges. The pressure of time, cost, complexity, and commoditization are unrelenting, and these problems will be greater tomorrow than they are today. We will all have to find ways to master these forces with flexible solutions that can provide both differentiation and the ability to scale economically. Those that can do this will earn great rewards because the opportunities ahead for the technology industry are boundless, and our success is limited only by our imaginations. Thank you very much for your attention and time this afternoon, and have a great conference. Thank you. Thank you.